I did something that I really enjoyed, and it was amazing.
Oh,
and
it is amazing.
And I'm so ashamed.
Aww.
Because this is wrong.
Meet Palle Bo, a digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world. At the age of 50, he made a bold decision. He sold everything, his house, his car, his furniture, and set out with a quest to visit every single country in the world, documenting everything along the way. This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm about to go into a place that's going to take me swimming with dolphins. It's gonna be so exciting.
What's your name? Craig, man. You doing good? Yeah, I'm good. Awesome, man. What's your head?
In Freeport, we got on a 20-minute boat ride through the beautiful canal systems of Grand Bahama Island.
Listen, guys, the more you know about these dolphins, the more you can interact
to the lagoon they call Sanctuary Bay.
All right, guys, watch your steps getting off.
It's a home to 14 Atlantic bottlenose dolphins.
How you're gonna rub them? Long, smooth strokes. No tapping, no scratching, no grabbing on.
First, we got a briefing from one of the dolphin trainers.
When you're swimming out there with the dolphins, swimming on your tummy at all times, okay? You can dive down with them if you choose. The dolphins are trained to follow you wherever you decide to go. And then the blowhole on top of the melon is where they breed from. And I know you don't want to cover up their blowhole, okay?
Then we got in the water to swim with the dolphins.
Okay, so hop on in.
And also, am I allowed to use my coco?
Sure you can.
Thanks.
You're so much welcome.
In turn, we performed behaviors with the dolphins, like turning around, speaking, waving, or splashing water. And the dolphin would do the same.
Oh, this is so cute. I touch her. I think she likes me.
She's giving you a workout today.
Yeah, she is.
Totally.
She's a handful.
Go ahead, Pella. Tap, Pella. Just one hand. Start swimming in, touching both of them. Good girl. That's a good girl. Thank you so much.
Then, one by one, we swam in between two dolphins.
You're going to swim towards me. Remember, just rest your hand on both of the dolphins, okay?
And they pulled us very fast around 25 feet, and then we hugged and kissed them.
Kiss on your lips. No tongue, okay? Don't give my dolphin no tongue now. What about their kiss?
Back on the boardwalk, the two dolphins that were performing for us would jump for us. It's truly amazing how high they can jump and the tricks they can do. Two American kids, Olivia and especially her brother Seth, really enjoyed the experience.
These amazing creatures are, amazing, and they should be protected. They're soft, kind, everybody likes them. And it's horrible to see them go extinct.
Yeah. What do you think, Olivia?
I think it was a really fun experience that the whole family could enjoy, even if you aren't an avid animal lover.
Yeah. Seth, you're more an animal lover than your sister.
Yep.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he should be born a dolphin.
Yeah, I think he would enjoy it a lot more if he was born a dolphin.
So, can you guys explain what happened? We got in the water, and first we
rubbed the dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
They brought you out in groups of two, and you could just they encourage you to swim out, and the dolphins would follow you, and they just let you just simply pet them.
Yeah, rub them.
Yeah,
and not the blowhole and not the face.
Not the blowhole face, and yeah, definitely, yeah.
And then they did tricks with us.
Yep.
What was your trick, Sam?
Splashing water.
Yeah, so we tapped on the water and they came out to the one that's tapping in the water, and your thing was you should splash some water on them and they splashed back.
Yep.
Yeah. And you, Olivia?
I twirled around and they twirled around with me.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
It was really cute.
And then at the end we swam with them and they
helped us swim.
Yeah. And we got a kiss as well.
That was not my favorite part.
That was your favorite. Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't your first kiss, but that was our first kiss, so.
Are you sure?
The dolphins seemed so happy, and I felt that they were enjoying themselves. But apparently, they're not. Did you notice what Seth said?
These amazing creatures are, amazing, and they should be protected.
These amazing creatures should be protected. I couldn't agree more. And in the second half of this episode, we will learn why the dolphins aren't happy and why you should never do what I just did. I must warn you, it's the ugly truth about dolphins in captivity and how they're being captured. We'll continue after I remind you that this episode is partly sponsored by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels around the world by searching a bunch of search engines in one simple search. Hotels25.com, best price guaranteed.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you so much for getting up at 2 a.m. That's crazy.
Yeah, we could have done it 7 hours from now. Then it would have been 2 a.m. for you. And
This is Gail Woon.
My name's Gail Woon. I'm a marine biologist. I studied oceanography and environmental technology and aquaculture at Florida Institute of Technology. And right now, I do work with children with an organization I founded called Earth Care, and we do environmental education in the schools, and then we have a Saturday program where we work with kids who are really keen on learning about environmental issues and going on fun field trips.
And you're on Grand Bahama.
Yes. I grew up here. My dad actually laid out all the roads before Freeport was a town, and then my grandfather landscaped it for Wallace Groves, the founder of Freeport.
Gail was a dolphin trainer at Unexo, the company I went with. That was back in the late 80s. And she left them and founded Earth Care, an environmental education NGO that works on current environmental issues facing the nation of Bahamas. And she became an anti-captivity activist. I started my conversation with Gail by telling her that I really enjoyed swimming with the dolphins.
Oh, it is amazing.
And I'm so ashamed.
Oh.
Because this is wrong.
See, because I didn't know any better when I started, and it wasn't till year into it before I realized, hey, there's another side to this, and it's not quite so pretty.
Back in the day, dolphins were only used for military work, and the person whose idea it was to do open ocean training was a dolphin trainer from several places in the U.S.
So his idea was, well, hey, why can't we do the same thing, only, have it be a touristic thing and have people have fun with them. So it was a really unique and cutting-edge idea, and some people didn't think he could do it, and I was lucky enough to be one of the first trainers to work with him.
He decided to get the dolphins from a place in Mexico because there are a lot of dolphins there.
Plus, there's zero visibility in the water. So his idea was that if he got dolphins from that area and brought them to the Bahamas, that they wouldn't be able to find their way home because they just would be so disoriented. All of a sudden they can see in this water and they couldn't see back home. And so that was his big premise for getting them from so far away. I came to find out later because a friend of mine was on that trip where they did the capturing. They captured over 60 animals to get the 6 they brought.
Did you hear that? They would capture 60 dolphins in order to get the 6 they needed.
To capture 6, they captured 60, and at least 15 of them died, and several more had broken pecs and were thrown back in with their broken pectoral fins. And so it's a dirty secret. It's a dark, dirty secret of it's not all smiles and giggles and grins. It's changing these animals' lives forever. It's just not right. they would capture as many as they could. Some of them got broken pectorals, some of them drowned, and those were just thrown back overboard. They picked the prettiest ones, and then they put them in a pen. And if they could adapt to taking a dead fish and eating dead fish, because keep in mind, these are wild animals, and they're used to catching live fish to eat. So they got these 6 animals, and they brought them back. And they kept them in a canal in the back while their wounds healed, because some of them had quite big tears under their pectoral fins. In fact, Kayla, you can still see pink spots under her pecs where the pigment never really went back.
That's one of the dolphins.
Yeah, she was caught in the net. My first day on the job was actually to photograph a necropsy, which is a fancy word for an autopsy of an animal.
Oh, okay.
The dead dolphin on the table on Gail's first day on the job was a dolphin named Uno. He was the dominant male of the group.
He ended up having died from pneumonia and septicemia. Septicemia is like a blood poisoning. And pneumonia is a common ailment in captive dolphins and captive whales. It's thought that their immune system gets depressed due to them being taken into and kept in small spaces, whereas wild dolphins can swim up to 40 miles a day. So all of a sudden, these animals are in a 90-foot by 90-foot pen, and it's quite a shock to their system, and some of them don't adapt as well, and Uno didn't adapt well. So what really hit me hard, and this was my first time working with marine mammals. All of my career prior to this, I'd been working with finfish and shellfish and algae, and so it really hit me hard that day when I was photographing, because the dolphin had lungs the size of what you would think a human lung looks like, and the insides all, to me, looked very, very human. The only difference was that the breathing was through the top of the head, and the heart was the same size. And I remember being really, really, it affected me, because I thought, geez, this is a whole different animal than I'm used to working with. I was upset that, this animal had died.
Gail was told this first day on the job that this was a sad thing that shouldn't have happened.
I went in with an open mind and had some really good times, I have to tell you, because we had a little boat that we would have inside the pen to train them to follow the boat. And it wasn't until we got them to think following the boat was a fun thing to do before we were able to have the confidence to drop the gate and let them go out into the marina. And then we would take them out into the marina for short runs and then bring them back. And each day we would get a little more confident and take them a little further. And we worked with different animals, so one animal might be comfortable going a little ways, and then any other animal might be comfortable going a little further. So it was an adventure, and it was an exciting time.
You're listening to the Radio Vagabond podcast. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you that I would be so thrilled if you shared it on Facebook or Twitter. And now, back to the show.
I was paired with Lukaya. She was what we'd call a juvenile, like a teenager. She wasn't quite mature. And she was my dolphin. I worked with her every day privately and then with the guests. And sometimes I would look in her eye, because at night we had little pens where they would be put up to, Mike said, to keep them in the small pens at night so that going into the big pen would be fun for them. So, and that upset me because the pens were really small. I would say maybe 10 by 10 feet. So one day I was putting her in the pen for the end of the day, and she looked at me with this crazy look in her eye, and she was swimming in a way that I knew she swims when she's angry. And I could swear she was telling me, please let me get out of here. I can't take it anymore. And it just hurt my heart. And from that point on, I started looking at them differently.
Gail's boss at the time, the head trainer at UNEXO, was Mike Schultz, today an infamous dolphin trader. One day it came to a showdown between him and the new dominant male dolphin in the group. Something where Mike showed his true self. And this was the turning point for Gail.
That day really stuck in my mind, and then shortly thereafter, what happened was Bimini, the male that became the dominant male after Uno had passed on, he started to rebel. And when Mike told us to put all the dolphins into their respective pens at the end of the day, Bimini refused. He refused to leave the big pen, and Mike got really angry and said, this dolphin's not going to rule me, because the whole spiel that we would give the guests is that all of their training is operant conditioning. Reinforce the positive, ignore the negative. But yet, when Bimini decided not to gate meaning go into where we wanted him to go, all of a sudden I was witnessing my boss doing negative reinforcement. He was trying to force Bimini to go into the pen, so he started grabbing these long PVC pipes we had and banging them on the surface of the water. And I don't know, it didn't really work. So the next day he shut down the program, and that was a big thing because, there was people paying upwards of $60 a pop to come and sit and put their feet in the water by these dolphins 3 times a day. So he shut down the program, and he had us take the nets that we use for corralling the animals for medical examinations. And he told us, he said, this is dangerous. We should only be using these nets for capturing the animals for medical purposes, but Bimini's not going to rule me. And so he had us basically drag the net across and try to get Bimini to go into this gate to the pen. And it didn't work. He was able to evade it, and because underneath the decks that you stand on, the docks, there's spaces where he could get away from the net. And then he ended up throwing in coolers and buckets, and he actually at one point threw his own body in, trying to scare the dolphin into the gate. This went on for 3 days. He told us we couldn't feed him because we weren't reinforcing his behavior, because he wanted him to go in the gate. So at the end of the day, I said, please, he hasn't eaten it all day. Can I please feed him? He's got 19 pounds of fish in the bucket. And he looked at me and he told me, throw the fish over the net outside of the pen where Bimini can't get it, so he can watch his dinner be in front of him, but he can't get to it. And I said, are you kidding? And he said, what are you waiting for? Why haven't you done that yet? And so for 3 days, I had to throw his diet over the other side of the cage. It didn't seem to make sense. It wasn't fun anymore when this started happening. And yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Shortly thereafter, Gail decided to resign.
I started to look at things in a whole different light.
And when she did, she wrote a detailed 4-page letter to upper management telling about the abuse and some pollution from a nearby sewage plant facing the dolphins on a daily basis.
What happened was that memo that I wrote to the higher management was never seen by my immediate bosses, and to this day they say they've never seen it, and so that memo was suppressed. Thankfully, about a year later, the dolphins were moved to where you saw them, which was far away from that site. So I'm hoping that maybe my letter had something to do with that. I don't know.
So while the present-day facility has improved the water quality for the dolphins, Gail still feels that dolphins can't be kept happily in captivity.
it became such a moneymaker. I didn't really think anything that I had to say would really resonate with them, because my boss, whose idea it was, Jeannie, her initial dream was once the animals were trained to do the open ocean release, there was that we would drop the nets entirely and that the animals would be able to stay or go as they pleased, and that we would hope that they would have such a pleasant experience with us that they wouldn't need the nets to stay. And that's what the idea that I bought into. But what happened was, when upper management saw how much money they could make in the encounter sessions, where they just, people just maybe put their feet in the water, and a couple people pay, premium price to get in the water with them. When they saw how much money they could make and how many, if they could do 3 of those sessions per day, after that, there was no question they didn't want to drop the nets at all. They just wanted to keep the program going. And what I ended up learning later was that, because I started working with wild dolphins, and just the amount of familial ties that the animals have. They have groups where they just stay with the grandmother, and they have like 3 generations that stay together, or they have groups of teen males, rogue males, that run around raping and pillaging. And these groups, they travel, like I said, up to 40 miles a day. So they have these intense and vivid lives, and to put them in these small pens just so people can pay to pet them, it just seems wrong. It just seems really wrong.
I'd like to point out that I'm not going especially after the company Unexo. More the whole concept of dolphins being used for entertainment because of the way they're captured and in most cases trained and kept in captivity. I don't know exactly how the conditions at Unexo is today, so I contacted them and gave them the opportunity to tell their side of the story. In the email, I told them about this episode that I'm doing, and I wrote, "I would like to give you the chance to comment on this, and I will include it in my podcast. Can dolphins, in your opinion, be kept happily in captivity? How are your dolphins captured? What do you do to ensure that the dolphins are happy? And other comments on the subject that you might have." They never responded to this email.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Rick O'Barry. He was the original trainer of Flipper, the TV show from the 60s.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah, very much.
Yes. He had his turnaround, like I had my turnaround. He had his turnaround somewhere towards the end of the series when Catherine, his favorite dolphin, he will tell you, and he's been interviewed, he says that she got so depressed that she committed suicide in his arms, because dolphins are obligate breathers. They have to think to breathe, and so he feels like that she actually chose to stop breathing in his arms because of the captive situation. And from that point on, he became an anti-captivity activist. I met Rick O'Barry about 2 years after I left working as a dolphin trainer, and he gave me his book, and it's called Behind the Dolphin Smile. I highly recommend it. I think the title of his book says everything. The way the dolphin's mouth is, it always looks like they're smiling, even though...
Exactly.
When I was looking at Lucaya's eyes, and I could see in her eyes, she was like, get me out of here. But yet her mouth looked like she was smiling.
Yeah, that's also what I whenever I see a dolphin, they're always happy and they're splashing around, having a good time, and
yes.
So it's so difficult to comprehend that they're not having a good time and not happy.
Well, if you think about this, the situation that you experienced, for every positive behavior that they're doing with the tourists, whether it's nodding their head yes, or jumping out of the water, or shaking your hand, every single one of those, they're given a fish. So they have to do that in order to eat. And so they have to work to eat, and then they have to work 3 times a day, or however many sessions there are per day. it's literally they're having to work for food. And that's a type of slavery. And if you think about these animals if you see footage of them out in the wild, they look like they're having so much fun, and then they're in these family bonded units. And once I realized all those things, I couldn't do it anymore. I had to try to divorce myself from the situation because it just hurt my heart too much. I couldn't continue to condone. But yet it was really hard for me to leave because I'd fallen in love with these particular animals, and I felt like, geez, if I'm gone, who's gonna look out for them? Who's gonna make sure they get their food, and who's gonna make sure Mike doesn't take their food away? So it was really, really a difficult decision to whether to walk away or to stay. And it in the end, I had to do what I had to do, but my heart is still there, and I've only been there once since I left there, and I have to say, it was an emotional time.
Yeah. When will the captures and the captivity circus shows stop? Probable answer is when we refuse to visit the SeaWorlds, the marine lands, and other facilities displaying these large social mammals. And if we want to swim with dolphins, then we should go out to the ocean with a responsible tour company and visit them in their environment. The dolphins are not happy in captivity, even though they are smiling, and they deserve full, rich lives in the wild. Because remember what young Seth said.
These amazing creatures are, amazing, and they should be protected.
I guess you get the feeling that this small island is like a small village where everybody knows everybody.
Oh, yes.
So for Gail, it's been quite a decision to stay on the island and then at the same time speak out against one of the island's biggest and most well-known tourist attractions.
I've been ostracized. Some people who used to be my friends are no longer my friends. But, you have to choose what you stand for. And I couldn't live with myself knowing that I was subjecting these animals to suffering. And I had to make that choice. Yes, I've lost friends. I'm not welcome in certain establishments. It, like you said, is a very small island. But I can sleep at night.
So make sure that you also get a good night's sleep. Let's not put our money in the pockets of tourist attractions that mistreat animals. That's why we, if you ask me, should never go see bullfighting, ride elephants, like I talked about in episode 29 from Chiang Mai, and also never go swimming with dolphins. What do you think? Have you done it? Would you do it? Join the conversation about this on facebook.com/Palle Radio Vagabond.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe in iTunes or the podcast app on your smartphone. You can see pictures, watch videos, and read much more on the RadioVagabond.com. Palle can be reached for interviews and public speaking gigs on mail at theRadioVagabond.com.
This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels around the world. Hotels25.com, it's best price guaranteed. I put a few links on the RadioVagabond.com. There's an interesting article from Huffington Post about Gail, and then there's a YouTube clip. It's a segment from 60 Minutes about a place called Tanji in Japan, a place they call the Killing Cove.
It just, I don't know. I can't justify it.
My name is Palle Bo. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. See ya.